Hello everyone, welcome to the next video on Birches by Robert Frost. This video also will be analyzed in this video also the topic will be analyzed in two parts. There is a lot to discuss in this poem. I don't want my students to miss out on any of the details. So without much ado, let's begin enjoying the poem. Okay. So this poem, The Birches, is written in blank verse. It is a personal quest to achieve the balance between the different worlds. Here, the poet has used the birch trees as an extended metaphor and the recurring motif of a lively young boy climbing and swinging down on them. It is very important for us, the readers, to know that we deal with so many expectations, realities, and the duties in our daily lives. Sometimes we lose focus on the plain joy of living. Birches, both as tree and symbol, becomes relevant in the modern day, gently reminding us, the readers, to find an oasis of calm and refreshment that one can tap into when things get harsh. Another thing that I would like to talk about is that it was written in the middle of the World War I. Perhaps Frost, in his own way, in this poem, attempts to soothe in the troubled times, encouraging or reminding us to embrace life's simple pleasures and find peace. This is one primary reason why the poet chose the theme of escaping to transcendence. We'll come across this while we read the poem. A state of existence that is better than the normal one. Talking about the structure, structurally, Birches is a stichic, Stichic. This is a new word that you will come across here. Stichic, a poem with no stanza breaks. This gives the poem a free flowing tone, which in turn is enhanced with the use of enjambment. You must have come across this earlier also, and if you see my earlier videos, there I have explained and also spoken about enjambment, which in turn is enhanced with the use of this enjambment, where verses break into the next line without punctuation. Some of the techniques that he uses are onomatopoeia. You will when you read this poem, you will see that the words like click, crack, then the feet thrown forward with a swish. There is also usage of sibilance, Sibilance. There is usage of sibilance. What is sibilance? Sibilance is hissing sounds that come from words like s, sh, z, etc. Like soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells. So this is sibilance. Another thing, while before I go into the major themes, I would like to talk about the context. The stream of consciousness. The poem feels a little rough around the edges, and it has a meandering thought, means curving thought, skipping quality to it, where the speaker digresses off his original point and then comes back around it. This is a modernist technique which helps to explore the way in which thoughts and memories are imperfect and tend to wander or skip about. Frost calls this poem, I have also used quotations of Frost while explaining this poem. You will come across this later also. He called this poem as two fragments soldered together, which may account for this disjoint structure. It feels that one half of the poem is a nostalgic reflection of boyhood spent in the country, whereas the other is a meditation on the transition between life, death, and back again. Although the speaker is not clearly moving from one to another, he is combining the two together and switching between them to enable us to draw some interesting parallels between these two ideas. He believes that poetry plays perilously between truth and make-believe. You can note it down and also use it in your answers. Plays perilously, Perilously, plays perilously between truth and make-believe. In the poem, he switches between the personal and the impersonal, the real and the fictional, the worldly and the spiritual. In a sense, this also represents the same pliancy of nature, Pliancy, pliancy of nature, as the birches themselves, a way to explore the tension and perspective by pushing the boundaries of our perception. So this is the context of the poem. Now let's talk about the themes a bit before we head straight on to the poem. One of the major theme is, first you will come across, is nature. That is very evident here. Frost places a great deal of importance on nature in all of his collections. This is, if I'm not very wrong, is taken from the Mountain Interval. So this is it was originally titled as Swinging on Birches. So the primary theme is that of nature, and here it is very clearly explained what makes him use this theme, or make this primary theme of nature as so striking for us, the readers. Okay, so the next theme that I'm going to discuss is communication. Communication, or the lack thereof, that appears as a significant theme in several of Frost's poems, as is relevant here also, presents it as the only possible escape of isolation, from isolation and despair. Unfortunately, Frost also makes it clear that communication is extremely difficult to achieve. In many of his other poems also, this destruction or the breaking down of communication that results in loss of relationships and many other things has resulted. Maybe in some other discussion we may talk about it. Then there is the recurrence of the theme of everyday life. Then is your isolation of the individual. This is very evident along with nature. Then duty, which is echoed in the poem. When you come across the word considerations, you will see this word being used, duties and responsibilities. So your considerations, rationality versus imagination, rural life versus the urban life, these are some of the prominent themes that have been used here. And while talking of this talking of these themes, it is very important that you note the lines that are describing or hinting at these themes. So if you want me to talk in details about these themes, make sure that you let me know in the comment section, so that I can talk about it in details, because there's a lot to talk about, which I'm afraid I will not be able to accommodate in these two videos, because the poem is of primary concern. I have hinted and I have just mentioned about these themes, and while talking of these themes, there are also some other poems of Frost which I have to take into consideration, which will make us deviate from the topic that we are going to cover in the syllabus. So when you face any doubt or confusion, let me know. I can make sure that in another video of Birches by Robert Frost, I discuss the themes in great detail. Okay, so without much ado, let's begin with the poem. Okay, when I see birches bend to left and right across the line of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them, but swinging doesn't bend them down to stay. As ice storms do, often you must have seen them, loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored, as the stir cracks and crazes their eternal. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed the crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust, and the next part we will discuss after this. So due to this moving on from one line to the next, and the expressions and the feelings or the emotions moving on from one line to the next, we have to stop at one point before we proceed on to the next. Now what is the poet telling here? To the left and right in the first line symbolizes or hints to the non-conforming nature of the birches. The second line, across the line of the straighter, darker trees, refers to the other seemingly serious counterparts of the birth. I like to think some boys been swinging them. This adds to the oddness in the position of the birches, which in turn triggers Frost's imagination. and the boys been swinging also hints at the imagination of the poet. One thing to be noticed in the poem is that the nature of the tree represents the various ways and the stages of the human life with the help of Frost's eminency to use the imageries and symbols. This is heightened just because of the expertise of the poet, as the ice storms do. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them. So the poet is rational enough to realize that it is the doing of an ice storm and not just any imaginary boy or just any boy. Often you must have seen them. Here, the usage of the word you. Here, at once, the poet involves the readers in sharing the experience. Okay, so now we will move on to the next lines. Loaded with ice a sunny winter morning, the ice storm has created a silver thaw, a glaze caused by the freezing rain on an exposed surface. Stirred by the breeze, the fragile ice makes clicking sounds against each other because they are moving. So it's kind of icicles that they are hanging from the birch trees, and they are hitting against one another, creating this music or creating this sound, this clicking noise. As the breeze rises and turn many colored, so the cracks lead to the prismatic effect, and this happens because of the refraction. You must have studied in your science and physics that this happens primarily due to the refraction played on by the sunlight. So it is the working of the sun that makes it so look unique and look beautiful. As the stir cracks and crazes in their animal, the bark of the tree is scored with horizontal lenticels. You will see that in trees, these kinds of markings are noticed, and the overall effect of the ice in the scored bark has been compared to the enamel in glazed pottery. While painting or this is a different art in glazed pottery, this kind of enamel paint is used, which makes it look or stand out quite different from any other forms of painting. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the stone crust. So the rise in temperature makes the ice to drop like shells made of crystal. So these shells are as if made of crystals, and this hints at the fragility. Shed here means drop. And in these lines we notice that there is a brittleness, a note of brittleness with a hint of violence. So what are the words that hint at violence? The words shattering and avalanche on the snow crust. So the ice has been compared to the shattered dome of heaven, which you will see in the following lines. And the ice collects below the tree as if it were a pile of glass being swept into a dustpan. It is so crystal clear, it looks like glass. And what does this ice being compared to the dome of heaven mean? We'll see in the following lines. Make sure that while moving on to the next part or moving on to the following lines, each and every line is very clear to you, because each and every line holds very deep inner meaning. It's very clearly stated, but the inner meaning is very profound, and you need to get accustomed to it so that you can write the best answers. Now we will move on to the next part. Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, you would think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed. So low for long, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground. Like girls on hands and knees, they throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. So we'll do this part again and again and move on to the next part while explaining. So what is the poet telling here? There is an inner conflict as realism makes him shed his daydreams and reflections, indicated by the heaps of broken glass to sweep away. By saying the inner dome of heaven had fallen, he refutes, that is, the poet refutes, the conservative idea of heaven and hell. He does not put his faith in some promise of bliss after his death, but believes happiness is here and now on earth. and you will find this in the latter part also. I have quoted in this explanation, as we will see in the latter part of the poem. Earth is right place for love, I don't know where it is likely to go better. So this recurrence is seen earlier also. Before we move towards the end of the poem, the recurrence is seen earlier, and you should keep this in mind and compare and contrast while writing your answers. So he is talking in these lines of this inner dome of heaven had fallen. He is talking about the old planetary models that have the concept of the celestial spheres, an outdated belief in which it was believed that each heavenly body was enclosed in spheres. Here what Frost means is that the factual world has crashed into the imaginary world, and that is represented by the inner dome of the celestial sphere. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load. So withered bracken refers to a type of withered or dried up or shriveled fern. This reminds us of the endurance in the face of life's struggles. It can sometimes weigh heavy on our creative selves, forcing us to closer ground realities. They are noteworthy for their hunched posture, and they seem not to break though once they are bowed. So they are noteworthy for their hunched posture. So low for long, they never right themselves. They are bent for a long time. Right themselves here refer to straighten themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods. Arching here refers to curving in the woods. And due to this low stature for their long time, they remain bent. Years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground. So the leaves from the upper branches grovel on the ground. There is no way by which the tree can stand erect, and the only way by we can see them or we can visualize them is that the leaves are groveling on the ground. They are lying close to the ground. Like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. So here one thing you will notice that there is a parallel that is being drawn to the birches bent heavily by ice towards the withered bracken. In spite of their bent stature, the birches don't break, making them different each time, warning us, the readers, of the danger of suppressing ourselves. And in the following lines, that years afterwards, the leaves from the upper branches where it is being groveling to the ground, it has been compared to the girls trying to dry their hair. Here he likens it to the sight of the way girls kneel forward on their hands to let their hair dry, let their hair hang dry in the sun. And this is his rebellion. Like the birch trees, he has to bow to reality, but he refuses to be broken by it. He does so by allowing his artistic thoughts to run wild. So it is by his usage of this artistic skill that he refuses to bend down and manages to stand erect, unlike the birch trees. So there is a comparison between the birches and to the girls, and this is a kind of an aesthetic simile, not just any simile, you can visualize it, so hence it is an aesthetic simile. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in to fetch the cows, some boy too far from town to learn baseball. So what is the poet telling here? Before I move on to the second part of the video, here truth has been personified. The poet says that he would still like to think it as the handiwork of some mischievous boy. With all her matter of fact, like truth was trying to speak like an adult, prim, precise, but the poet prefers the whimsy narration, as we see in the following lines. What do we see? I should prefer to have some boy bend them, like a kind of carefree thrill that is noticed here. He imagines a boy who is doing this mischievous deed of bending the tree. As the boy may be from the rural background, here you will see why, because he runs errands to fetch the cows. When the poet's adult life is ravaged by some harsh truth, he prefers the truths to be like a birch tree, bent by some boy who cannot afford to learn baseball because he was away from town and bending was the only play that he found. So the truth is that he cannot afford to go to the town, or he is away from the town, or it is too expensive for some reason for him to learn baseball. So the only way in which he could entertain himself was by bending the birches and carrying on with his playfulness. There is a tone of carefree attitude that we are reminded of by the poet. Now in the next video I will talk about the remaining part of the poem. The link to this, both the parts will be provided in the descriptive section, so make sure you watch the first part before moving on to the second part. Okay.